Hi, I'm Holly O'Neill, President of Retail Banking at Bank of America. The series is all about hearing from leaders and teammates who are changing the game and making it personal for consumers. I'm so excited to be here in Chicago, home of the Elite Chicago Marathon, proudly presented by Bank of America. More than 5,000 teammates call the Windy City home and serve millions of clients every year, whether at one of our 133 financial centers or digitally. We talk a lot about financial health at the bank and the importance of meeting clients where they are on their financial journey. Your financial health can be determined by how you spend, save, and borrow money, along with having a plan to achieve your long and short-term goals. And today, we have an incredible guest who has made it her mission to improve financial health for all. We've been fortunate to partner with Jennifer Tescher on our journey to make clients' financial health the foundation of everything we do. Jen is the president and CEO of the Financial Health Network and a pioneer in financial health. So much so that she coined the phrase financial health that we all use today. She improves the financial lives of millions by bringing leaders in business, policy, tech, and more together to understand what works to advance people's financial health and share those best practices with companies like ours. Through her work, the financial services sector is undergoing a makeover. Banks are embracing that they're in the financial health business for their clients and employees. And on a personal note, Jen is a Chi-Town resident, a wife and a mother, a ukulele player, and the only person I know who has taken a 130-mile pilgrimage in Spain. Jen, welcome, and it's great to join you here in Chicago today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, it's great to be here. So I have a whole host of questions, but I want to start with a little bit about you. You founded the Financial Health Network after a career in journalism and financial services. What encouraged you to lean in and build what's now today the Financial Health Network?
Well, honestly, this is about the last thing on earth I thought I'd be doing. I have wanted to be a journalist, a newspaper reporter since I was a kid. I have an insatiable curiosity. And when I was practicing as a journalist, I realized I wanted more quantitative skills. I really have always cared about issues of justice, and those are the issues I wanted to be writing about, or so I thought. But when I went back to get a graduate degree in public policy, I realized that I didn't just want to write about the issues anymore. I wanted to do something about them. And so through a variety of sort of circumstances that were unexpected, I ended up working for Shore Bank, which was the nation's original community development bank here on the south side of Chicago. I had never considered banking. When I interviewed with the president of the bank, I told him I didn't balance my checkbook. I really didn't quite know what I was getting myself into. But at Shore Bank, I really came to appreciate the excitement and intellectual interest that I had in balancing mission and margin, running a bank that was a business, a profit-making business, but in a way that was actually, at its core, at its mission, was trying to do right by its customers and the communities in which it operated. And so several years later, I had the opportunity to take that same insight and bring it to the rest of the financial services industry.
Well, it certainly is impressive. And I think just coining that term, financial health, and to see how it's permeated financial services is really impressive. So thanks. I'd say a job well done so far.
Yeah, we're not done yet.
No, we're not. So before we keep going, just talk to me about what financial health means to you and how are consumers doing from your perspective?
Yeah. So over the last 10 years, we've really developed a framework and methodology around measuring financial health. And I think what's important about it is not just the words, but that we believe it's a holistic measure. It's not one piece of data or your credit score. It's trying to represent the totality of people's financial lives. And as you said earlier, in how they spend, save, borrow, and plan. And we measure the financial health of Americans every year for the last 5 years. And unfortunately, in this last year, it was the first year since we started measuring that financial health in the country declined. It's not surprising given the end of COVID stimulus funds, increased spending because people are out and about, and rising inflation. But we are concerned about where it's going to go from here. And I think it's worth pointing out that we can't just talk about financial health in aggregate. We really have to understand how financial health plays out for different people, whether it's the color of their skin, the people they love, their gender, their ability. And as an example, only 15% of Black Americans are financially healthy. That's a 20-point gap compared to white people in America. Similarly, there's a 16-point gap in financial health between women and men. Just shy of 40% of men are financially healthy, and for women, that's less than a quarter. So financial health is not equal opportunity, and it's really important that we think about how to improve it for all, which means including folks who historically haven't been.
Right. Could not agree with you more. And I think some of the work that's done broadly on women and minorities and attention to what's specifically needed for them will help us make some improvements there. So next year, in 2024, you're celebrating 20 years with the Financial Health Network. So you launched it 20 years ago. So as you step into this next leg of your journey, how has your definition of success changed? Because obviously this evolves as you move forward. So how has that changed?
Yeah. So 20 years ago almost, we actually were called the Center for Financial Services Innovation. So, and that was because the internet, became popular in the early 2000s. And the year that we were launched, in fact, was the year that Google went public. It was the year that Mark Zuckerberg invented the Facebook in his dorm room. And we were founded to answer the question of how can technological changes in financial services benefit those who need it most? How can we use technology to create access, greater access and create greater affordability for people who were unbanked or underbanked? So that was how we defined success in the beginning.
Right.
And then fast forward 10 years, lots of things happened. We invented the iPhone, which was going to radically change access.
Right.
We had a financial crisis. And then the third thing was the Great Recession. And the understanding there was, wow, this isn't just an and underbanked problem. This is the majority of Americans who are struggling financially. And we missed it. We were gathering the wrong data. This was decades in the making. And it was at that point that we realized that what we were really about wasn't just access, but about improving people's financial lives.
Right.
So at that point, we shifted to a framework of and defining success as improving financial health for all. And I think that in our next chapter, which we're still writing, I think there's two things we're going to be more focused on. One is the for all, as we just talked about earlier. How do we make sure we bring everyone along on the journey? And then the second is, how do we bring more actors to the table outside of financial services? Mm-hmm. We've already started to experiment with that over the last several years. Employers have a role to play in the financial health of their employees. Healthcare providers have a role to play in the financial health of their patients, and so on.
That's great. And involving all of the stakeholders around the table will have a better outcome.
Absolutely. Just as financial health is really a holistic, integrated idea, if we really want to be customer-centric, a customer doesn't wake up one day and say, well, today's a banking day and tomorrow's a doctor day. And they see all of those things as part of a single system. What can we do as providers to actually engage that way?
That's right. And, it's funny because this series, Game Changers, we look to a lot of people, even outside of financial services, and for just that very reason, right? The consumer, the client doesn't think about different categories. They experience things differently, and the bar gets set differently depending on all of these experiences collectively.
Absolutely.
So really important that we have a broader perspective. So at the Financial Health Network, your goal is to educate, innovate, advise, and connect people's financial lives. So what drives your passion on this topic?
I said earlier that I'm insatiably curious. That really drove me, I think, to journalism. But I also sort of was raised by parents and in a faith where sort of justice and fairness were really core tenets. And so the notion of the old days of journalism, where, it was really about fighting for the little guy, exposing wrongdoing.
Right.
That was really
Right.
the journalism I was signing up for. And so this set of issues around financial health ultimately at their core are really about fairness and justice, because a lot can be done to help people live their best lives, behave in ways
Right.
that are going to help them achieve the things they say
Right.
they want for themselves.
Right.
But there are also a whole set of structural issues that are really not in their control, but that dictate the choices they have available to them in the first place. And so folks like you and others have a really big role to play in creating systems, structures, policies that understand where people are coming from and are going to help them live their best lives.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I think the concept of financial health and feeling secure in your financial journey, where you are, that you understand where you are, and you understand what you can and can't do, that permeates so many different aspects of people's lives. Because think about it, when you're stressed about your financial picture, it impacts everything that you do. So, it really is a great objective and has such broad implications for every individual. Okay, so how, in your opinion, are financial institutions evolving to be in the financial health business? And how are they working to change the game and break some of the old industry norms and really think differently about how we do the business?
Well, Bank of America is probably example number one. I could sit here and talk about all the ways in which the bank is living that, but I'll restrain myself. I'll talk more generally.
We'll share that later.
Yes, and I wasn't paid to say that. It's true. It's really impressive what you and the rest of the team at the bank has accomplished. We've spent years now trying to make the case that whether or not you realize it, bankers, you're in the financial health business because that's what that's what your customers want from you. And so I think for a while, the question we would get often was, why? Like, why should I care?
Right.
Now the question we get is, what? What do you want me to do?
Right.
So I think a lot of institutions are now trying to better understand their customers in a broader set of dimensions. COVID and the pandemic certainly drove that also. Wow, I really have to think about my customer's life in a much broader way, because that's all the stuff they're bringing when they walk into my branch or get online on my app. We see firms creating roles with financial health in the title. So giving folks actual responsibility for this at their institutions. We see some firms really changing their purpose statements to reflect a commitment to putting people at the center and improving financial health. So it's been an exciting journey.
Yeah, so our purpose statement was changed by our CEO many years ago in terms of helping our clients live their best financial lives. So that really has been at the core of what we've done. And your partnership with Bank of America has really helped lead us to where we are today. So I do want to thank you publicly for the insight, the feedback, the guidance that you and your organization have given us all along the way. So as you know, we have worked with J.D. Power, and we've been certified by J.D. Power twice around our financial health framework. And you and the Financial Health Network were a part of that. So what got you engaged in that, and why did you decide to do that?
So J.D. Power actually approached us about creating a new survey and certification around financial health and advice. So we were thrilled because we took that as a sign that something was working.
Right.
I think the other reason why we worked with J.D. Power, as opposed to, say, do it ourselves, is we work with dozens, hundreds, really, of companies and organizations, and we are more effective when we can write the rules of the game and let someone else pick the winners. We try not to pick winners because there's a role for everyone here to play. Problem is bigger than any one of us. So it's a great opportunity for us to help J.D. Power write the rules of certification and what does it mean? What does it look like when a firm is doing well? But then J.D. Power gets to make the ultimate decision about who's the winner.
Well, thank you for your work in that, because that's
Well, and
been
thank you for
very important to us.
you were not only the first to be certified, you were the first to even express interest and to recognize that this is an important thing to stand up for. And I also want to point out that that certification isn't just based on us kind of looking and seeing. That certification is based in part on a national survey of your customers and what they think of what you're doing.
Right. And the reason it was important to us, and it very much aligns with something you said, which is it has to be in the fabric of how you do your business. It can't just be a one-off initiative or project. It's got to be embedded in how you run and build your business.
Exactly.
So that's what, why we were very, very interested in it. Okay, so we've been working with you around the financial health journey to understand and document our journey. So as you reflect on what we've done, what are the key takeaways that you have coming out of that?
I think the first is it goes back to leadership and tone from the top. And Brian Moynihan, from the beginning, set an approach for this institution around responsible growth. And a key tenet of that was putting consumers at the center. That really matters a lot. I think the other is the role that you have played, not just as a leader, but being the first to be a customer care leader, to creating a role like that and codifying it, again, building it into the fabric, I think are key. I think your voices platform, the listening to the customer, actually listening to what they have to say, and building your processes around that has also been key.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And it is a journey, as you know, and a whole host of teammates and
Absolutely.
teams really have contributed to this across the company. So I'm going to transition now.
Okay.
So I believe almost a year ago, last summer, you took a pilgrimage, 130 miles. Mm-hmm. The portion of the Camino de Santiago in Spain, 130 miles. And you did that to really be more present in the moment. So first, how long did it take you? And then I'd love to hear about just the impact that had on you.
Yes. So first I want to say that I was on a sabbatical. And I took my first sabbatical 10 years ago. I am a big advocate for taking time off. And I am just so impressed that Bank of America recently, in the last couple of years, has introduced a sabbatical policy.
We have.
I think I heard something like 11,000 team members are going to be taking a sabbatical.
It's extensive. The feedback has been incredible, and I feel like you're guilting me into doing a 130-mile pilgrimage, which I may just take you up on.
I would love to join you.
Keep going.
So a big part of this was really about getting off the grid, remembering what it's like to not be busy. I've been interested in the Camino, which is an ancient pilgrimage route in Spain, for a very long time. And I'm not a big outdoorsy person. I'm not a big athlete, but I did a little bit of training here in Chicago, and it was the experience of a lifetime. I have the shoes to prove it.
Let's see.
Yes.
I'm surprised they're not in a shadow box on a wall somewhere.
I still wear these.
Okay.
They're active, in active use. But in all seriousness, it became like a walking meditation. So I walked for 11 days, 130 miles. And that was only about 25% of the whole route.
Wow.
And sometimes I was with other people, and sometimes I was by myself. But just being that present in nature, and it's beautiful countryside.
Right. It looked gorgeous.
I really needed that recharge. Right. And now even just when you say the words, brings a smile to my face.
That's the sign of a successful sabbatical, and kudos to you. It sounds amazing.
Well,
really
I'm a big, if you qualify, take it.
Okay.
Got to do it.
All right, I'll let Brian know.
Please do.
Okay, I'm on to a rapid fire round. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so these are really quick questions, some having to do with Chicago, some not. So, best advice you've ever received?
Pay your full credit card balance each month.
Okay, that's great advice, since I have 2 teenagers who now have their first credit card. I love that. Favorite movie based in Chicago?
Blues Brothers.
Oh, that's very good. Okay. One leader you'd love to have dinner with and why?
That's a hard one. I'll go with Brian Stevenson from the Equal Justice Initiative. I first got to meet him at a Bank of America event. He originally was working to get people off death row who were falsely accused, and is now one of, I think, our greatest civil rights leaders. And his journey to me and the way he shows and demonstrates his leadership is so powerful, and I think there's so much more I could learn from him.
That's great. I love that. Cubs or Sox, not the Red Sox, the White Sox, since we're here in Chicago.
Cubs.
Yeah, okay. Oh, nice. So my husband, after college, lived in one of the row houses before they became part of the stadium, so good answer. What are you currently binge watching?
I'm more of a reader than a watcher, but I am finishing Better Call Saul. Better late than never.
Okay. I haven't seen that, but it's now on the list. So Jen, it's been so great to have you on Game Changers. Every time I talk to you, I learn something. I get different perspectives. But most importantly, I love your passion for financial wellness, and I really appreciate your partnership. So thank you very much for all you do and your company does.
Thank you.
Us.
Feeling is mutual. The partnership is really so important.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Nice to have you. May marks Small Business Month, so it's only fitting we hear from one of the best in the business at the intersection of small businesses and entrepreneurship. We'll be back shortly. Hi, everyone. We're back with Game Changers. Small businesses are the backbone of our country, and I'm so excited to have Sharon Miller here with me to talk all things small business. Sharon is the president of Small Business and head of specialty banking and lending here at Bank of America. She's been with the company for over 25 years and plays a pivotal role in helping small business owners across the country thrive. Under Sharon's leadership, Bank of America's small business has grown to be the largest lender to small businesses, a position we've held for a number of years according to the FDIC. Sharon, it's so good to see you, and it's fun to be here at the Luminary. For those of you who don't know, the Luminary is a global platform and professional networking hub created for women entrepreneurs based here in New York City.
Yeah, it's great to be here at Luminary. In fact, we launched our last Small Business Owner Report here in the fall, and so it's great to be back.
Well, it's great to have you, so thank you for joining Game Changers.
Thanks for having me, Holly.
So this month is Small Business Owners Month. And congratulations on the release of your Small Business Owners Report. I believe you said we've done 11 of them, which is really remarkable. And for those who don't know what it is, the report explores aspirations, concerns, and perspectives of our small business owners across the country. So it's a great way to get some insight to what our small business owners are thinking and feeling. So can you talk a bit about the study and some of the key takeaways from the study this year?
Well, like you said, we survey our clients at least once a year, and this is the 11th consecutive year of us releasing this report. And this year in particular, with everything going on in the economy and the environment, it's interesting to still see that business owners are optimistic about the future. In fact, over 70% said that they plan to increase their growth of their business this year, even though inflation and the economy still remains a top concern.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. And the report also found that 80% of the business owners have digitally optimized their business, and that's up from 70% at the last report. So we all know digital is really important. So from your perspective, how do you think digital is going to help small business owners in the decade ahead?
Well, it is. I mean, it's through the pandemic, and so just thinking about where we are today in the economy. So we said, small business owners are absolutely thinking that their business is going to increase over the next 12 months. And 3 out of 4 said, I'm prepared for whatever is in front of me. So a recession, they're prepared. And that goes back to the pandemic, I believe, because during the pandemic, many people were caught off guard. And so some of the lessons learned were get prepared. Digital and AI tools were one of the things that did come out of this whole pandemic, and making sure that you have the ability to conduct business across the globe, even if your storefront is closed. So it's becoming increasingly important in today's entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, and we all learned from the pandemic for sure, and digital was such a key piece. So there's no walking away from that, and I look at it as one of the positives that came out of that test for all of us. So just transitioning to a slightly different topic. The number of women and minority small business owners is growing at a really fast rate, with Black women growing 17%, according to the research by the Harvard Business Review. That is faster than any other group that we have. So how are we supporting women and minority business owners?
Well, I mean, it's a priority for us at the bank, and particularly we're women, and so it is, to me, just inspiring to see women entrepreneurs and their success. So one, with the Bank of America Institute for Women's Entrepreneurship in partnership with Cornell, as you know, we have enrolled over 100,000 women into this program. It's the only Ivy League course of this kind. That is a lot of women impacted. And then the studies go even further to say that women bring back $9 out of $10 back to their community and to their children and to raising families, and so more than their male counterparts. So all of this just continues that cycle of investing in women, investing in entrepreneurship, and they're in turn investing into their communities.
And it really is the cycle and the circle of life in many ways, right? When you think about women giving back in those communities. So May is Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And I know that we had a look into what that demographic is also looking for as business owners. So what did we hear from them in the study?
Well, I mean, we heard from them that we need to continue to focus on helping them get access to capital for their businesses, that they continue to need training and education. And really, this is no different than any other demographic. And so as we think about it as a company, we want to make sure that we give the tools, the resources, the education, and investing in capital. So as you said in your entry, we are the #1 lender to small businesses in the U.S. And so we continue to go down that path to make sure we're there for our clients in every community we serve.
Yeah, and it's so interesting and important that you look at all these niches of small business owners and get their very unique perspectives, and then we take that into consideration as we're developing our capabilities and how we interact. So some people don't know, you're from San Antonio, Texas. So do you have a favorite small business in San Antonio that you keep going back to?
Well, I have a lot of them, but I will say right now, in fact, you and I were just talking about this wallpaper behind us, and so I am doing a little spring cleaning at home, and so it's a gift shop and a home decor. It's called Lynn Marche, and it's an amazing shop right near my home, and so I'm getting a lot of things there to make my home ready for spring.
Right, that's great. And I also live in a small seaside community outside of Boston, and there are a ton of small businesses. And it's so rewarding to me to go in and support those businesses, and many of them female business owners. So I think, it's up to all of us to continue to kind of give back and include them and use those small businesses. So in your 7 years running small business and, interacting with so many of our small business clients, do you have a memorable story that you can share?
Oh my gosh, there's so many memorable stories. I mean, to me, I would say it's about the journey of the small business owner. I mean, when I came into this business 7 years ago, I had no idea just how inspiring and resilient and amazing that the spirit of the entrepreneur is. And so I would tell you that every business that we interact with, you can hear the same story, their passion. They have grown this business. I mean, I think about Lynn Marche, 1985, the business was founded by her mother. She's carried on that tradition as her mother has passed. So there are just so many stories like that of generational businesses, of passions, and of creativity that really fuels local communities.
Yes, it does. It does. So do you have one piece of advice for millennials or Gen Z individuals who are wanting to start their own business? So they're likely at the front end of that, starting out. What's your one piece of advice?
Customer service. You have to focus on your clients. You have to know your clients. You have to serve them. Word of mouth is so important in any corporation, as you just said, but it is key and the lifeblood of really forming your business, getting those repeat clients, and servicing them. That's the differentiator.
Right. So small business owners are incredibly committed. So for any of us who know small business owners, I'm sure we know many of them, you in particular, they're so committed and so resilient. And one survey found that 22% of small business owners would not give up any ownership of their company for $5 million. $5 million. Why do you think that is?
Because it's their passion, and they know that they can continue to grow that this is their life.
Right.
So as you think about that, why would you give that up?
Right.
For any amount of money.
Right.
I mean, this is their passion. This is what makes the spirit so strong within entrepreneurs.
Right. It's who they are.
It's who they are.
This has been such an incredible conversation, Sharon. Thank you so much for joining us.
So good to be here, Holly. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again to Jen and Sharon and all of you for tuning in with us. I know we're all walking away recommitted to our financial health mission and encouraged to shop small.